U.S. Navy can't fight China without these advanced weapons. The amphibious force can operate a large number of deck-launched aerial drones and unmanned surface ships. There are so many potential scenarios in the Pacific region that might require or benefit from the presence of an amphibious force. Should Taiwan or Japan fall victim to some kind of Chinese attack, then the ARG could immediately bring in thousands of Marines to support the defense, launch F-35 jets to attack oncoming troops, and rapidly reinforce supplies, troop reinforcements, weapons, and equipment to the affected coastline. Attacked. As a formation that can launch fifth-generation stealth attacks from the sea, deliver heavily armed ship-to-shore vehicles loaded with Marines and weapons, operate Osprey tiltrotors for troop transport behind enemy lines and a fleet of surface, air, and underwater drone commandos, the U.S. Navy Amphibious Ready Group, ARG, can virtually operate as a customizable, multi-mission carrier attack group. This is especially true in maritime environments such as those in the Pacific region where there are multiple island chains, coastal areas, and the operational requirements of the sea-land domain. Unlike carrier strike groups which have large, deep blue sea vessels such as aircraft carriers and destroyers, amphibious ready groups can conduct maritime combat operations in open blue waters as well as in coastal areas. In terms of the types of direct combat missions that could emerge and quickly become important in the Pacific region, many will likely require ARG-related capabilities. Perhaps this is part of why the U.S. Navy now operates the American Amphibious Ready Group in the Pacific region, conducting patrol and security operations in the Philippine Sea. An ARG in the Pacific region would not only have the capability to launch ship-to-shore amphibious attacks in island areas or along contested enemy coastlines. The Navy can, however, launch the F-35B's fifth-generation vertical takeoff and landing stealth aerial assets that can conduct ground attacks, strike enemy surface ships, support advancing amphibious forces, or even carry out forward reconnaissance and targeting missions. In this regard, the ARG introduces a measure of mission versatility that the heavier, longer-range carrier strike group may not achieve while still ensuring the possibility of fifth-generation air support. There are so many potential scenarios in the Pacific region that might require or benefit from the presence of an amphibious force. Should Taiwan or Japan fall victim to some kind of Chinese attack, then the ARG could immediately bring in thousands of Marines to support the defense, launch F-35 jets to attack approaching forces, and rapidly reinforce supplies, troop reinforcements, weapons, and equipment to the affected coastline. Attacked. With boats such as ship-to-shore connectors capable of transporting large numbers of Marines, equipment, and weapons for battle, the ARGs themselves can launch amphibious attacks against invading amphibious forces to thwart their advance and prevent a successful shore landing. Amphibious forces can also operate a large number of deck-launched aerial drones and unmanned surface ships capable of forward reconnaissance missions, transport critical supplies ashore, or even carry out offensive strike operations when directed by humans. The scope of this kind of tactical mission would also prove critical if some kind of confrontation were to arise in the South China Sea, where land and sea intersect repeatedly and in rapid succession. This need for multi-domain close-range maritime strikes, largely oriented to the Pacific, may very well explain why the Marines are working intensively to build and deploy their new light amphibious warships for island-switching, expeditionary warfare that moves weapons and Marines quickly and efficiently, alternating from ship to shore. The United States has been the world's leading maritime power for decades. However, the U.S. Navy could be behind China if current trends continue, analysts said. Washington and Beijing are now locked in a great power competition. The biggest challenge for U.S. national security leaders over the next 30 years will be the speed and sustainability of the People's Republic of China national effort to deploy a global navy, said retired Captain James Fennell, who previously served as head of intelligence for the Pacific Fleet. The modernization of China's Navy, also known as the PLA Navy, has been ongoing since the 1990s, and its fleet has grown rapidly. In its annual report on China published last year, the Defense Ministry stated that its Asian rival has more than 300 surface combatants, submarines, amphibious ships, patrol boats, and other special vessels. In 2019, China had a fleet of 335 ships, about 55% larger than in 2005, according to a recent Congressional Research Service report titled, China's naval modernization. Implications for U.S. naval capability, background and issues for Congress. There's no doubt that they've invested heavily in this, said Nick Childs, Senior Fellow for Naval and Maritime Security at the London-based International Institute for Strategic Studies. In recent years, they have beaten everyone. To put it in perspective, over the past 4-year period, the naval vessels produced by Chinese shipyards are roughly equivalent in tonnage to the entire British Royal Navy or Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force, according to Childs. Meanwhile, the U.S. Navy has 293 ships in its combat force, just 2 more than it did 15 years ago. Its leaders aim to increase the fleet to 355 ships, but analysts say it is not feasible unless there is a massive increase in shipbuilding budgets or a change in the fleet's architectural mix towards cheaper platforms such as unmanned systems. Given the journey of China's naval shipbuilding over the past 20 years, China's desire and ability to continuously increase its spending on naval shipbuilding, the cost advantages its shipbuilding industry enjoys compared to foreign naval shipyards and the continued trend of domestic Chinese shipbuilders. Technical mastery of complex designs and systems integration. I hope the PLA Navy will continue to surpass the U.S. Navy in the number of warships built in the future, Fennell said in remarks at the Hudson Institute last year. Fennell estimates that by 2030, the Chinese fleet will have a surface strength of more than 450 ships and a submarine force of about 110 ships. However, predicting its future size and structure is a challenge as the government is unclear about its ambitions, other analysts said. The final size and composition of China's planned navy is not publicly known, O'Rourke said. In contrast to the U.S. Navy, China does not release naval-level objectives or detailed information on planned vessel procurement rates, total planned vessel procurement, planned vessel decommissioning and projected force levels. But it is clear to experts that the country's maritime capabilities are improving. China quickly retired older single-mission warships in favor of larger multi-mission vessels equipped with advanced anti-ship, anti-air and anti-submarine systems, sensors and command and control networks. According to Defense Intelligence 2019, the agency's report was titled, China Military Power: Modernizing a Force to Fight and Win. In his CRS report, naval specialist Ronald O'Rourke said Chinese ships, aircraft and weapons are now comparable in many ways to Western navies. However, in terms of aircraft carriers, the United States is still dominant, analysts say. China currently has only 2 operators. The Liaoning entered service in 2012. The country's first fully built aircraft carrier, the Shandong, entered service in December. The former is conventionally powered, has an estimated full load displacement of 60,000 to 66,000 tons, and can reportedly accommodate air wings from 30 or more fixed-wing platforms, according to O'Rourke. The Shandong has had some design improvements and may be able to operate an air wing larger than 40 aircraft.